And 1 and 2. And what you gonna do? Hello, and welcome back to the Focused on Infinity podcast. This is the second installment of FoI Off the Clock, which is conversations with people who I met on our favorite clock app, or not so favorite clock app a lot of the time, TikTok. But say hello to everyone, Marcela.
Hi, what's up? I'm Marcela Onyango. I'm on TikTok. I'm Feel the News with Marcela, and that's where I met Logan. I have a little news show. It's fun. Listen to it.
You should. And yeah, Marcela is one of the people I enjoy listening to. So there's like a few comedy news people and news people that are not, your standard. Like I stopped listening to CNN, MSNBC, except for like a clip here and there.
Yeah.
Just for like raw information, forget about it. So people like yourself and like I like V, who does Under the Desk News. But V's V's a little more centrist for me, to be fair, but like definitely quality. And I go to Democracy Now! For like the long form, whatever, but like for something punchy and also hilarious, and also your politics and mine, I think match much more than of any of those other
yes
news, So when I want to hear basically what I'm thinking about the news, I go to your page and see what you have been doing. So tell us how you started Feel the News.
So I found this out and I didn't realize it. I actually started Feel the News. Turns out 4 years ago, I totally forgot about this. This is so wild. Well, let me tell you the story. I'm a stand-up comedian. I like to tell jokes. Maybe I'll tell some today. Maybe I won't. Who knows? It depends on how I feel. 4 years ago, so when I first started getting into comedy, I was a different person, not as leftist as I am now. I think I would describe myself as a democratic socialist, right? Was working on Bernie's campaign, all that stuff. But I was like, I do stand up and I also like politics, not a lot, but enough. And I was like, let me do a little news show because I wanted to write for the Daily Show and all these other news outlets, which not going to say anything right now, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, so I came up with this idea for a news show. I called it The Fucking News. That's what it was first called.
I mean, I like that, but I understand why you changed it. But
yeah. And my first story was about these camels getting plastic surgery for camel pageants. They were being forced to do plastic surgeries. And so I kind of when I first started doing The Fucking News, it was me just picking out really silly little news stories that I found and would do them. And then COVID hit, which by the way, it's still here. I know some of y'all think that it's not, but COVID's still chilling, right?
Seriously. Getting more spunky by the day, honestly.
Doing little dances, waiting for y'all to take your masks off, get together with your friends. It's about to come back. But then COVID hit and then we couldn't do stand-up anymore. Zoom shows were here. And then I was and then I started doing Feel the News again, but I was doing it on my Instagram page. And so my husband, who's really sweet, was like, hey, this app called TikTok, you should try it. And I was like, what? I was like, what is that? What is this? And then I went on it and it was a bunch of kids dancing. And I was like, I'll think I want to hear this.
Oh, TikTok was so much more innocent then.
I know. And also during this time, I've been completely radicalized by the pandemic. I went from being a democratic socialist to being a full-blown anarchist. I was like, this shit. Because at first I was like, why isn't the government helping us? Mm-hmm. And then I read how Europe underdeveloped Africa. And I remember reading this sentence that really got me when he said, the purpose of the state is to siphon resources from the bottom to the ruling class. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started, Feel the News with a sense of humor and anarchy. And it was 1 minute. And the whole thing was to tell people how to feel from an anarchist perspective. And over the panty. Awesome. And then the panty's still here. I'm still going.
That's awesome. And also much needed because, Yeah, like it's just sometimes you want to hear like this happened and this happened, and sometimes you just want someone to be like, hey, this is really fucked up, and and I wish more news people or people doing like that was like you mentioned the Daily Show, and I think that's like one of the things that helped the Daily Show rise is that. And I think Jon Stewart himself said this is, like y'all are failing. That's why people are coming to me.
Exactly.
Because, like people just got sick of this sort of like dry delivery, where you're telling, it's like 800 people just got whacked, by like it's like a field of exploding porcupines, spines everywhere. And like, and you're just giving this just like so blandly. It's like, no, this is something you should have some kind of, which is why I like the name.
Exactly. Looking like, perfectly man, nothing wrong with looking fly as fuck. You always look fly as fuck. But it's like a mannequin with like just opening mouth closed, like really nothing. The eyes aren't moving, just like giving it to you straight. And sometimes you just need somebody to be like, you should be crying and yelling. Like just.
Thank you. Seriously. Yeah, they look like those like General Dynamics. Have you seen those really scary robots? They like really look. I mean, I don't think it's actually General Dynamics. They make the ones that like more move and are they more terrifying because they're like just about battle ready. Yeah. There was this other company I saw recently that's making like the humanoid ones, and they're having conversations, and like, it's like, I do not want to hurt humans because I don't want anything. And you're just like, okay, this is like animatronics gone horribly wrong. This is terrifying, right? Have y'all not seen one movie? Like
iRobot. But Logan, I will say that those movies, when they're talking about robots, they're talking about us. That's why they're always like, oh, they're going to reach consciousness. They're going to reach consciousness. Because right now, like, have you watched iRobot? No, this is a high thought.
No.
Feel free to jump off this wagon if you're like, you've gone too far.
I'm on. I'm strapped in.
So do you remember watching iRobot?
I mean, I watched it when it first came out, whenever that was, and I was higher than
the only way to watch it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a scene where these robots, because these robots are essentially like, they do work for humans and whatever. Mm-hmm. Every single night they go to their little crates. And then they come out to go work for the humans, and then they go back to their little crates and go back to work. That's like us working for these capitalists. And their greatest fear is that one day we'll wake up and stop doing that. So whenever they show these robots coming to consciousness, we've been programmed. We're the robots.
Yeah.
And one day we're going to be like, and when they talk about humans, they're talking about them because they don't view us as humans. We're just little.
That's real. That is real. We are the automatons. You're absolutely right. I was missing the allegorical for the, just literally being terrified of some of these robots they're making. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that's, that is clearly the allegory and, the story of us, as it were. Tell us a little bit more about, you asked me this question and other people when they're on your show. So I was like, time for a little, turnabout is fair play, as they say. Turnabout is fair play. Tell us what your political leanings, your political affiliations, so we know if your views on the news can be trusted.
Logan is just getting me back for doing this to them, y'all. Like they're just getting me back. So my political views, I would say, if I read more, I would end up to the fact that I was an anarcho-communist, in the sense of like, I think that we should get rid of, I think hierarchy is a source of all evil. I think the state is a source of all evil. The fact that all of us came together and said, oh, it's okay that these countries made up by rich people to exploit us in these borders makes sense every day. Like, I'm like, how do we fall for this every single day? Because essentially the way the state is built, human beings have always moved, back and forth. We've always moved, right? Like that's why Europeans went to Africa, went all over the world, got all the shit that they wanted. And then after that, they were like, close the doors, right? They created...
Right.
Build these like borders essentially. But these borders are just a way to exploit people, right? Because in order, like white wealthy people, they can move across the world however much they want. But it's the exploited people. The states that are being exploited, they can't leave their countries. Why is that? Because if you were to make if you were to allow people to move freely, it's much harder to exploit them, because if you set the minimum wage in Kenya to be 50 cents and it's $10 here, they would just all move here. Yeah. So you make these borders saying they can't come here so you can keep exploiting them. But essentially, I mean, that's why I'm an anarchist. I think states are not here to help us. They're here to exploit us. I think hierarchy is a way to prevent us from, shouldn't exist. When you give people power, they do bad things. Nene Leakes, for example, in The Real Housewives of Atlanta, more power she got, the more evil she became. For example, I know some of y'all are Nene Leakes fans out there. You can come for me. I don't care. This is my opinion. And essentially also this hierarchy is a way to keep us divided, right? Like gender, race, all these layers that they have, right? And then when you come to things like homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, anti-Black, like all these things are just like to divide us so that we're all fighting with each other, as opposed to like fighting the one person who's coming for us and coming for our things, who's Jeff Bezos and all the other ugly rich white men, which is like, how can you be so rich and so ugly?
It seems to go with the territory, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, that's how we can tell who they are. No, actually, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg's ugly. I think he looks like a robot. Like he's just uncanny valley looking.
Yes.
And have you noticed that he and Jen Psaki, if you take the hair away, they have exactly the same face.
Is it the same person?
It's really, really, really weird. They look a lot the fuck alike. And they're both like, that's sort of, I don't know. I feel like Jen Psaki, whenever she talks, she is on so much Valium and Xanax just to like not react to people asking her these very real, very important questions. And she just is able to kind of give the White House line, and in a sort of lightly dismissive way. But like, you can tell that she's like brimming with contempt because
she is. She's like, how did these peasants question me?
Yes, exactly. And she gives me the same vibes as Mark Zuckerberg getting questioned by Congress that one time. Like I don't fuck with a lot of people that some people still like in Congress, but like there was that when he got grilled by a couple of them.
Oh, was this when they were like, Facebook is evil and destroying everything?
Yes, exactly. And he was like, Congresswoman, and he kept saying Congresswoman because like, and you could tell that like as it kept going on, like Congresswoman might as well have been a slur in his mouth, because he was just like so low key. If you know what you're looking for from a robot, you can tell when they're getting angrier. But it was like it was building, and he was also trying to think, so he was using it as a placeholder. It was very good. As far as I have decided that I don't like labels. I can't do labels anymore because like a lot of these things are just so they were like, the ideas just exist in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And like I feel like once somebody like puts a label on themselves, it's like they put a flag in themselves, and like you're saying, flags, borders, they're inherently violence.
Exactly. Because why do you need to know?
Exactly. Ask me what I think about a thing, and there you will see my politics. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, let's
why do you need
specific.
To know? Why do you need to know?
Yeah. I don't trust them, but I 100% borders are there. And I like what you said about they like kind of went around, drew all the borders, took all the stuff, and then we're like, okay, that's what everything is now, and those are the rules, and you got to play by those rules. Now that we've set all the rules and extracted all of the all the wealth from the world, what a mess.
Exactly. And then these rules, we tie them to ethics also, is what they do. It's like, this is right, like intellectual property, they're like, it's unethical to steal people's ideas and make money from it. And I'm like, you steal people and make money from them? I don't know, like, what?
You are not the moral authority here. That is a very, I like the way you put that. Tell us about some things about yourself personally, some things that your audience may or may not know, that my audience certainly doesn't. So,
things about me personally.
Yeah, the wheres, the whats, the whos, the
what's, the who's. So I feel like everybody already knows that I don't know, maybe people don't know this. I moved to Texas when I was 12. I grew up in Kenya. I was like a typically terrible child. Oh my God. One thing about me that I'm going to say, and people might hate me forever, but I will say it, is that I was specifically like actually a bad kid. I was so bad that my neighbors wouldn't let their children play with me. Like, I was a neighborhood pariah. And it's not because I want it to be. It's just because I just like, I didn't know. Like, I was always so awkward and I didn't know things. But one thing that I did do that I will say is objectively evil and wrong is that I used to live in Kenya, in Nairobi. And I don't know. And my neighbor had a garden. And I one time decided that, the garden, I don't know. I just kind of fucked it up. I did that.
What did you do to the garden? I mean, did you pull up the roots? Did you?
Yeah. I did that. Those are some of the things but my dad always says he's very surprised that I became a nice adult.
Okay.
Because he's like, I didn't know where this
touch and go there for a while. And so did this continue when you got to Texas, or did coming to this country change anything?
Oh my God, coming to this country changed so much. Coming to Texas, honestly, for me was the wildest ride, because I remember when I first came to Texas and people were speaking to me. Keep in mind, I grew up in a British colony, still a British colony. We can pretend that it's not anymore. Yeah. It's free, whatever. So I grew up learning English. So keep in mind, spoken English all my life. Got to Texas, literally could not understand what these people were saying. Could not.
Right.
And I was like, what? My brother and I would be like, are they speaking English?
You don't understand that long drawl that makes every word take 30 seconds to get out? Yeah.
I don't know. It was hard. That was really hard. But it was a summer, so I got it.
A little culture shock?
A little? You said a little. That's funny. Ooh, okay. So the other thing, you can cut me off. I talk too much sometimes.
That's what we're here for. I want to hear all of these stories. I haven't heard any of them. So we did not understand people. We first got there. My dad was, which is a story for another time. Maybe I can tell it here. My dad was drawing maps. They got him from Kenya because the reason why I moved is my dad got a job working for the United States government, drawing maps. Might have not been of Afghanistan before Afghanistan was invaded. Might have not potentially been hired by the CIA without knowing. Might have moved back to Kenya after he left the United States and no one would fuck with him because they were worried that he was. Might have not or might have. Nonetheless, so we moved here because my dad was hired by the United States government. Huh. I was going to say, getting a job drawing maps, don't they know where everything is already? How are you drawing? Cartography is a little bit, yeah.
Anyway, so the interesting thing is that when I first moved here, I remember this is one of the stories that I always say, because we didn't really fully understand racism. Of course, the concept of racism, we got it. We knew that it existed. My dad grew up in East Germany. He dealt with some stuff. But I, growing up in Kenya, was only around Black people, never really interacted with anybody who wasn't Black. So didn't really fully grasp it. I knew a little bit, but not a lot. So my dad was driving. It was me, my family. We're in a van, dad driving a van. And he was stopped by the cops. And the cops told him that they stopped him because he didn't stop at a yield sign. A yield sign.
But that's not a stop sign.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
And told him to get out of the car.
Oh, no.
And go to the back of the car.
Mm-mm.
And my dad just pretended like he couldn't speak English.
Did that work?
And they let him back in the car. And that's how I thought that the cops pulled over people. I thought that the cops always told people to get out of their car. And it wasn't until later.
Oh, no.
That I realized.
Right. That was. Thank goodness that didn't end differently.
Exactly. I didn't even know how different that was, because it's I always assumed that that's what happened. And then when one time I got pulled over when I was in high school, I didn't have a seatbelt on. They didn't tell me to get out of the car, and I think that's the first time I ever got pulled over. And I think and then I remembered, I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, he's Black. So these are some weird little things like that, you don't
where you
fully
put
get
it back together in hindsight.
Exactly. And then I was put in AP classes. Oh, so when I first went to middle school, my middle school was actually pretty diverse. I walked in, when you first walked in, we all had assembly where we would sit in the gymnasium, and it was mostly Black it was not mostly black kids. It was like a good mix of black kids and white kids. And then when I went to my first class, it was all black kids. Went to my second class, it was all black kids, all black kids. And then the next day I came to class, my science teacher talked to my counselor and was like, oh my gosh, this little one here is really smart. I think we should put them in the gifted talented program. So my schedule was changed. I go to the gifted talented program. That's where all the white kids are.
Oh, wow.
Could you believe?
Unfortunately, yes, but it's still fucked up.
But like, that's what gifted talented programs are. They're just a way to segregate schools. And if they do it, and you know, they do it here too. You're from here. You know that they do that shit here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a private school for most of my schooling. Mm-hmm. I went to, well, my schooling is a very long story, but also your dad's story and my dad's story. There are some interesting similarities that I will not talk about here, but remind me to tell you offline. Sorry to everyone else. You're just going to have to wonder.
Wonder.
Yeah, I know. But the feds, they do, you know, they find people, they put them places. Anyway, I mean, I also, in hindsight, put together a lot of things that happened to me that were racist that I didn't get at the time. Mm-hmm. And even more so since I grew up predominantly with white people, since my school was it was a school for rich kids. So it was like definitely mostly white people. And, you know, that was like normal for me. Mm-hmm. And then in hindsight, I was like, wow, I was in some really potentially dangerous, you know, I'm like out in the woods with like a bunch of white kids and I'm dating like some like white girl and the parents invite me to go to their ski chalet.
No, this is how Get Out starts.
It really does. You know, when I saw that movie, I was like, this happened to me like several times growing up, and I did not realize I was in mortal danger each and every time. Like, so, oh my goodness. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do it again now, but then I was just like, like, no
let's
problem.
go hang out with the whites. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's interesting though, and this is a tangent, but I think it's interesting that I think that one of the things that we as like Black people and people of color in general need to do is I think there are different ways that we have interacted with people of the overculture, let's say. And there are some of us who are I feel like some of us are like connective tissue, because we do need to you know, as much as there are some people, I mean, look, anybody who calls himself any kind of nationalist, I don't fuck with you.
No.
I don't care if you're a Black nationalist, a white nationalist, no, because that always comes with misogyny. It always comes with certain types of hierarchy, often with certain types of religion that I can't, doesn't include me. Mm-hmm. So
don't include either one of us, babe. Yeah. Doesn't include either one of us.
Right. So so that's true. But, and we do need to get everyone in I don't like calling it the working class, because I feel like that framing is sort of being that's what makes people valuable. And that's what capitalism wants us to think. They want us to think as of the workers' value. It's inherently ableist. It leaves out a whole bunch of people.
Exactly. What about the lumpens, or the people who just don't work, or the people who can't work, or the people who are just outside of the whatever you want to call it, the schmeconomic system, whatever. What about those people, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I just say the people. But in so doing, there are, you know, I'm growing to appreciate the fact that I had that I grew up around white people, so that I can speak, you know, it's a sort of cultural bilingualism.
Do you speak white?
I fluently, you know, it's not even right. There's people who do code switching, and I feel like some people code switch. I'm just actively bilingual.
You're I can turn it on and off. I can do it. This is my second language. This is my second language. I speak it. I don't know. You know, that's so interesting though. When you talk about being bilingual or speaking multiple languages, you know, what language to speak based on who you're around. And not even the language, your mannerisms change. My husband would say, whenever I talk to my family in Kenya, I speak totally differently, even when I'm speaking English, and even the way my mannerisms, those change because different cultures interact with each other in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I mean, honestly, that That's natural. That's how, like, I like the idea. In fact, I would love to be able to speak a little. I'm trying to learn a little bit of every language, just so I kind of have like a baseline. You know, like I can read Cyrillic, but I don't know what any of the words are.
I was about to go like, when does one use Cyrillic?
It's Russian.
Okay.
Yeah, is
that what the Russian text is? Is Cyrillic?
Yeah.
Okay, I had no idea. I did not know that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do not know.
No. Hey,
yeah.
It's I don't know. You know, it always, when I was a kid, I remember Cyrillic, Russian, well, Ukrainian also uses Cyrillic, whatever. But it looked to me like, you know, have you ever seen words in a dream where you can't read them? Where they look kind of like letters, but there's like some of them are backwards and upside down, and you try. Yeah.
Because some of them are like letters that you know, and then some of them are just not.
Yes, and actually it's not so hard to learn Cyrillic because they're either the same or they're from Greek. I think there's only I don't know, there's like maybe 8 or 10 that are unique to Cyrillic, and the other ones are borrowed from Greek, or they're the same as the ones we use in English. But anyway,
I don't always feel like I learn so much from you when I talk to you, but please keep going.
It's because I am full of just random stuff.
You're a walking encyclopedia.
I don't know any of the stuff I'm supposed to know, any of the regular stuff, but like put me in front of Jeopardy and I'm firing them off like the answers are coming fast. All right, let's talk about something specific. I wanted to talk about a couple of news stories.
Oh goodness.
That have been you know, kind of going around, and one of them is the war. Speaking of Ukraine and Cyrillic, and I wanted to just get kind of your thoughts. And you know, how should we feel about the war in Ukraine?
Okay, the war in Ukraine, obviously you should be pissed about that, right? Like, it's not okay to murder people. It's not okay to go in and kill people. Like, Putin is wrong, straight up. We can talk about that. But also, you should be really pissed because this is the first time we're getting real war coverage when there are other wars actively going on, being perpetrated by the United States government, and nobody gives a fuck. Let me tell you something. I can't even look at the Ukrainian coverage because I get so upset. Because I'm like, there are kids dying in Yemen because the United States dropped bombs in hospitals. Putin did the same shit. People are losing their goddamn minds. I went over to Google and they're like, support Ukraine. I'm like, what about Yemen? What about those kids? Your taxpayer dollars are paying for them to be murdered. The United States just like bombed Somalia. Like, y'all, come on. Like, this is the reality of this. What's happening in Ukraine is horrible. It's sad. It's bad. But you know what? That's not the only place that this shit is happening at. And the fact that they're going to spend all this time, when you turn on CNN, I was at my cousin's house. It was not my fault. I did not turn on the CNN. Her TV was on CNN the whole time. Ukraine. And I'm like, well, y'all do give a fuck if people die then.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden. I wonder why that is.
Could it be because of that person said they're a more civilized? Or is it like, what words did that CBS person say? More civilized country? Mm-hmm. They're not constantly in war and deserve to die because you have white skin and blue eyes. Which, by the way, their skin is not white. That would be a ghost, y'all. That's Casper. It's not. Just to clarify that.
Right.
It's more like pink, I would say.
Yeah. It's like a peachy, pinky.
Yeah. Well, imperialism is bad, and Putin's wrong. He's an imperialist, but I'm not supporting the Russian government. As I've said before, I'm not supporting the Ukrainian government. The only people who I'm rooting for are the people on the ground who are actively suffering right now. The fact that they're turning this Ukrainian president into like a haughty, like, you remember the cool homosexuals? This is like the same shit.
Same thing.
I don't care. I'm not hopping on that bandwagon, right? No. And then let's talk about the Africans who are still stuck there. Nobody gives a fuck about, right? Like, the Poles welcomed the Ukrainians with open arms. People are taking people in their homes. Meanwhile, they won't let the black people go across the border. So I think for me, the war in Ukraine, the fact that it's happening is truly terrible. But if you care so much about what's happening in Ukraine, I need y'all to turn back around and see what your own government is doing to everybody else in the world. The way those Russian people got arrested for protesting Putin, I need y'all to get on the street and give me some of that energy. Those people are fighting for other people's lives.
Yeah.
Y'all, like, I mean, I know some people have protested, but like not the same level.
Yeah. I mean, let's put a pin in protest because I have some.
Yeah, I know protests are bullshit too. So yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more.
At this point, especially in America.
Well, because it's a parade. It's like 4th of July parade. Everybody put on your pom-poms. Let's dance around. Let's do a little dance. And the cops are going to watch watch us, and then we're all going to go home. This is why we don't get shit, because they know we're not going to do anything about it. Like, we're just going to go and dance out in the street. But yeah, no, I get you. No, I mean, I guess it's like what I'm saying is like the rage, the outrage.
No, absolutely.
It's not.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And everything else you said, like the Africans in Ukraine hashtag, when that first happened, it was like, it is, I mean, I'm anti-war probably above everything else, because I feel, to me, war is the great evil. It combines capitalism, it combines militarism, it combines, the ownership of people essentially by these like petty lordlings and the vulture class globally, right?
Yep.
So like it's the nexus of all things. And like, what is the most capitalist invention? A bomb, a bullet. You use it one time and it's gone. And you got to make more. Yeah. And it's like you leave destruction in your wake that has to be built over. So then you get your Halliburton in. So it's like you win like 3 or 4 times when you have a world basically built on war. And so like, honestly, for me, it's like, not only is it not Putin versus Biden or whatever, or Putin, they're part of the global vulture class.
Yes.
In some way they are working together, whether it's, and even if it's antagonistic, right? They can still sit down with each other and be like, well, I don't like you, but I respect you as the leader of this other country. And like, that's like, if you really were about it, you would not be having calm discussions, with other people, you would be, if you actually believed the things that you say. And that's why, for example, in American politics, right? In American politics, when Joe Biden says something like, oh yeah, Mitch McConnell's my friend and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's like, you're telling the truth, but you're telling on yourself and telling.
You are telling on yourself, but people don't get that. People don't get that. People are like, oh, we should be able to disagree, but still be friends. You're disagreeing on people's livelihood. If somebody thinks that you should die and somebody else says that you should, how can somebody who thinks that you should die be friends with somebody who doesn't think you should die? They can't.
Unless they don't. Right. They both think you should die. Just one of them is like, well, we don't want you to die, but if you do, it just had to happen. You got to break a few eggs.
Yeah.
And that's basically the Democrats and the Republicans. One of them is like, we're going to kill you. And the other one's like, well, we don't want to kill you, but the stock market, we got to get the line to keep going.
I know we don't want to kill you, but people die sometimes. And it's really like not our fault. It's like we try our best to like be the best, but like it just happens.
Exactly. Anyway, that is. So Ukraine is indeed a problem. And now this is going to get a little controversial, but let's talk about what happens when you have NATO.
Okay. The thing about NATO is that when the Berlin Wall came down, the United States promised that it would not expand NATO, okay? But then the warmongers, aka the Lockheeds, the moneymakers, were like, well, how are we supposed to make money, bitch? Like, what are we gonna do? Like, this is like, we literally make money from selling weapons, and NATO is always going to be, like, these NATO countries, they're gonna need to buy weapons from us. And in addition to that, it constantly puts us at the brink of war because the Russians don't like it. That's one of the reasons why NATO is being expanded. It's not because, they care about these Eastern European countries. That is not the reason why. It is strictly because these warmongers, as you said, Logan, what do you call them? The vulture class?
The vulture class.
They want to make money at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you agree, but like, that's my opinion about NATO. It's not the United States. It's never here to help anybody. Whenever the United States says I'm here to help, you better run fast.
That is, in fact, that is like that's a paraphrasing of something Ronald Reagan said.
Oh, government, I'm here. The government, I'm here to help. And he was.
Yeah. And right. That's like the only thing he ever said that was right. And he meant the opposite of it. He meant it. When he said that, he meant we're going to take away healthcare and welfare and make things harder for everybody.
Yeah.
But we're going to increase, the military apparatus.
The oligarchs, give them more power. Yeah.
Yeah. Ronald fucking Reagan.
To agree with that, man. Hold on. Look, and let me tell my partner that we're doing a podcast, because I don't think he understands that this stuff. Hey, honey, whatever you're doing, we can hear. And Logan's going to have to edit this stuff out. Don't give them more work than they have to do. They're already trying hard in life.
Some days.
Yeah.
Some days it doesn't feel like it.
No, Logan, don't cut yourself short. You live, you do the work. You do the work more than anybody that I know. Like, I don't even have the energy nor the strength nor the patience that you have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Doesn't feel like it sometimes, but I appreciate that. So let's switch gears slightly, because as we're talking about, I do want to say one more thing about NATO, though, which is people say when you say that like this war is largely our fault, they're like, you're an apologist for Putin, and you're experiencing puppetry of the Putin and like all this nonsense. And it's like, okay, first of all, I don't like none of those motherfuckers. All of them can go.
Ain't nothing to like.
But I have many people that I love who are Russian, like from Russia. One of my very best friends was from Belarus. And so people in Russia, I'm down, right? The Russian people, absolutely. Yeah. The Ukrainian
But that's because they're the people. They're the people who are being... I started referring to these things as a place called Russia, because those people just happen to live in this thing that somebody called Russia one day, not where they live.
Right. And that's the big thing of it all, where it's like, the international proletariat, whatever you want to call it, like we are all under the thumb of some fucking petty lordling who gets to decide when and how we live and die.
Exactly.
And that shit is, that's the basis of all the world's problems. Because honestly, if there was some sort of global referendum, we could fix all of our problems in a heartbeat. If you actually just got everyone in the world, right? One person, one vote on things that was okay to do, things that were not okay to do. We could clean this shit up tomorrow, but it's not going to happen, because that's why they have these power structures.
Exactly. And these things called states are just here to make people who live in one state think that it's okay for another person in another state, who, by the way, share their same concerns and share the same problems, to view them as an other, when in reality, they're the same. The only difference is that somebody drew a little border and told you, well, you're this thing and this person is this other thing, when in reality, y'all are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't possibly agree more. So remind me, after this, I watched a documentary which gives a lot more of the history of Ukraine and like how we got to now, and like Zelensky, and it kind of makes Zelensky seem like a sort of a Juan Guaido figure, but like Juan Guaido S tier, like Juan Guaido but successful. But we'll talk about that offline, because I'm not sure how much of that I want to put out there, because it's
people get so mad. A lot of times I hold a lot of stuff in just because I'm like, y'all are not ready for this. Like, you're all not ready for me to say this, and I'm not even the smartest person in the room. I'm like, I do read. I read enough.
You're
but like, I don't
clearly smart. Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I'm not one of those people who's like read all the books, done all this stuff. I've just like read enough to know that it's a lie, y'all.
Yeah. I think I can't remember who said it, but they were like, I don't know what it is, but I know what the fuck it isn't. and that's what we're doing. So one of the problems that's going to happen as a result of what's going on in Ukraine is there's going to be wheat shortages, because that area of the world is known as the breadbasket. And it feeds a lot of North Africa, a lot of Europe. In fact, the Ukrainian flag is blue and yellow, because the yellow represents the wheat and the blue represents the sky. It's the endless wheat fields of Ukraine is why they have a blue and yellow flag. And the fact that there's a war going on right there, it's going to be really, really, really bad, especially for, North Africa and Africa in general, because, look at the treatment of Africans in Ukraine and you'll know what's going to happen with the wheat. But it's going to be a big problem. And so that's going to be exacerbated by, of course, climate change. So climate change is kind of what I wanted to shift over to talking to you about. And I wanted to get your thoughts on, overall thoughts, what we can do to mitigate. Is there any hope? Should we start, buying land in the Arctic Circle, moving next to penguins? Like, what should we do?
Well, I've told people previously on Field the News is that everybody should get a little backpack that has one of those floaties that you can just like blow up and like just like jump on. because you're going to need those. There's going to be floods are coming. No one is coming to save us. But anyway,
that's real.
How do we stop global warming? I mean, at this point, we're too late, right? Those changes that are going to happen, like those increases in temperature, those are going to happen, right? In terms of adaptation, the rich people are going to be fine. So the reason why the rich people don't care about global climate is they know that whatever is happening to us is not going to happen to them because they have the states in place to take all the resources to take care of them. So they don't care. So the only way we stop global warming is to get rid of capitalism and get rid of all this bullshit, because at the end of the day, it's never going to stop. They're never going to stop. Biden is still funding oil companies. He opened up the Gulf for drilling. Like, these people know that it's like whenever you say the subway is not working and somebody who's never taken a subway is like, okay.
Right. Except that if the subway's not working, New York City doesn't work.
Yeah, but these people
they can't make the connection. It's true. They
don't care, because at the end of the day, it's like they don't deal with the system. They don't live in the same world that we live in. And that's the thing about them, is that they've gone so arrogant that they think that they're literally nothing, not even the environment. Can destroy them. I mean, if you can manage to exploit billions of people and not have them revolt, you start thinking you're God, right?
Yeah, that's real. Damn, I was actually just telling, I think I was Malumbo I was talking to. And I was talking about, like, I went to school with kids. Like, my school was a school for the capitalist class children, and I went to school with kids who had never taken the subway, like in New York. This was like between Park and
Now, Logan, before you go on, I'm about to ask you a very important question. Are you a class traitor?
No,
in the best way?
Because I'm not rich, like my family was like, my mom, she owned a shop. It was like, I had a big scholarship to this school.
Oh, I see. I was like, oh, Logan, you're a class traitor. Are your people going to come after you? Anyway, no, please go back to your school.
It would be great. I would like to have that kind of, except for another thing I was talking about recently is that, like, I had a scholarship to this school.
Yeah.
And I think they do that because what they want to do is they want to get a few people of different identities in there so that they can convert them, and then they can raise some Herman Cainses, some Candace Owenses,
Barack Obamas,
and some Thank you. Because seriously, and look, I don't care who gets fucking mad about it, right? Like, they want a few people that have our hue to get in there so that they can make it look like everything's fixed. It's one of the best tricks they ever pulled, was letting us have a black president. And we can also talk about how the average cis white woman never got over that, because who was supposed to be next in line and never got
mad.
There.
They still mad.
Still big mad. So anyway, I think you're right. I think that there is no answer to climate change except for ending capitalism, because, like you said, they don't. I
interrupted you when you said you went to school with capitalist kids. I want to know what you wanted to say more about that, because I feel like I interrupted something smart that you were going to say.
Oh, no. I mean, mostly just that, like, growing up with their level of disconnection and growing up with the fact that they, like, had never been on the subway. They, like, didn't, understand how much things cost, or, like, it's like I had whatever my allowance, and it was a pittance, right? Compared to what most people that were there had, right? And so, I remember being at, I played D&D, with some of the kids of the.
It's fun.
I love it. I still play it today. But one of the groups, it was like everybody would go out after school ended, before the D&D game started, get snacks, and like sometimes I didn't have money to get snacks, and like you would ask one of these kids for like one of their chips, and they would just laugh at you, get your own. Like, what do you mean you can't just go buy some chips? Like, what do you mean?
Like what do you mean no money? What
exactly? They just couldn't possibly fathom.
It's like running out of air. They're like, what do you mean you can't breathe? Like, it's like being an ableist and telling somebody who's like, what do you mean you can't?
Yeah, just walk there, and you're talking to somebody who has like some sort of mobility problems, right?
Yeah, just go.
Exactly. It's like the fish who had never heard of water. You know what I mean?
Exactly. They're like, what do you mean water? What is water?
And they just didn't get it, and were just like disdainful, and sometimes they would get upset. And I could tell that it was like they were getting upset because you were making them think of something that they'd never thought of. Mm-hmm. And it was like their first dose of maybe having to slightly have a little tinge of empathy, and they didn't fucking like it. And so they would just get mad at you, which I think is something that is true of like a lot of the vulture class, the capitalist class, these Congress people, where you're like, hey, people are suffering and dying. You're like, and their thing is like, well, but we have to have the businesses keep doing this. So like, that's not my problem. Don't bring that up to me. Like, you got to break some eggs to make capitalism run. And it starts when they're young.
Yeah.
They're literally trained.
Yeah, like for you to build somebody who literally will pay somebody no money and watch them die so that they can have more stuff.
Yeah.
No human is born like that. Like, nope. You can't be.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
And you have to be so far removed from the people that you're hurting in order for you to keep hurting them.
Yeah.
And that's why they live in their own worlds where they never interact with us. Because if they did interact with the robots, lived a day in their lives, they might realize that, oh, shit.
Yeah. Empathy is costly to them. Empathy literally costs them money. And money is their only God. Whatever religion they claim, whatever they say they're doing, their only religion is their only God is money and capitalism. And like, I don't mean that in like the Christianic sort of like money is the root of all evil sort of thing. Like, that's not what I mean. What I mean is they only believe in the acquisition of, it's power. And that's what it is, right?
Exactly.
I also don't believe that power, and this is kind of a hot take, but like, I don't think that power corrupts. I think power reveals your level of corruption. Because if you gave me or you power tomorrow, I would not all of a sudden become a capitalist and be like, well, let's drill the fucking Arctic because I'm a billionaire now. Like, it wouldn't change me to that level. And I feel like there is an element to which power itself is denigrated, because when people accept their power and when they fully accept just their worth, essentially, there's shit you can't do to them. And that's another reason I think that Christianity is so big on being like, you must be meek. You must be humble.
Yeah, because they don't want you to be powerful. No, I agree with you. The part that I guess is like, I want to specify for myself is that like, I think people like you and me also would never want power over people, but that speaks over the type of people that we are, right? Because if you want power over people, that's going to corrupt you, but we would never want that, right? And like, the power that you're talking about, which is feeling like I'm a powerful person and I have a right to be here and I have a right to say what I say and I am entitled to certain things.
Yeah.
They don't fucking want us to have that.
Absolutely. In fact, I was, my business was kind of on the way to, I was actually thinking about having my dog business become like a multi-state, multi-city entity. And like, I was just going to keep hiring people and then do the whole thing. And then I was like, and this was before I had like my big, political awakening, whatever. But I was like, something about this doesn't feel right. And I don't want to keep doing this. And actually what I ended up doing was I ended up turning my business from a top-down model to essentially like a workers collective. And like, I was like, these are now your clients. And like, I will be the director. And like, I'll provide the training and the supplies and like the office and whatever. So you'll give me like a percentage.
Which is fair, because that's your labor at the end of the day. Yeah,
exactly. And just making it more like, I was like, I want to live in a way that fits my values in every way possible. Like, even if it's inconvenient to me or I could be making more money another way.
And that's the thing, though, is that like, it's hard, too, because at the end of the day, it's like for you to even get to that point, that's hard. And even if you I wouldn't have considered you not to be a good person or bad, because that's what we're taught. It's like you're taught like that this is how things work. You get a company. You build it and then you employ people and then that's how you create wealth. Like that's viewed as like the norm. And most people, I would venture out to say even a lot of really good people, that's what they do. And it's not because like I mean, some people are just exploitative and assholes. Like, let's be real about that.
Real. Very real.
But